Well, Fight Night is finally upon us. It is the first presidential debate of 2020. And I've been doing much more mainstream politics stuff on this channel. That's not a trend by any means. It's just that, hey, we're really close to a presidential election, and I'm American, so this stuff kind of interests me. So, if you haven't been liking that direction, sorry, but that's how things are going to go until probably after November, assuming things don't get too crazy after November, which odds are they probably will, particularly if old Donald Trump is able to pull through and actually win re-election. Now, a lot of people are talking about the debate tonight, and I'm not going to repeat anything really that I've heard other people, beaten to the ground. So I'm going to try and focus on some observations that I have that maybe you're not hearing too many other places. The biggest thing to me is that people tend to focus, when it comes to these debates, too much on the candidates trying to sway undecided voters. It kind of goes along with the conventional wisdom of how, candidates need to always moderate from the beginning towards the end of their campaign because, they want to be able to swing the independents in their favor. And independents are, of course, moderate, we all know. Total nonsense. But that was the old conventional wisdom. You sound like a strong conservative or liberal in your primary, and then you want to triangulate once you get into the general election. Don't you love those terms? It's another way of saying you want to lie to people. Either you lie early on to your base, or you lie later on to the moderates that you want to attract into your coalition. And so conventional wisdom would dictate that candidates continue to do that into the first presidential debate and throughout all three of them, essentially trying to vie to convince the undecided voters one way or the other that they are the superior choice over their opponent. But that, I think, is a really not an applicable strategy here in this particular election. Donald Trump's a pretty polarizing figure. He's been in office now for almost 4 years, and I think that most people have made up their mind on how they feel about Donald Trump. So I don't think it's particularly smart of Trump to just try and play to the undecided vote. Now, maybe Joe Biden, you could make the case, he could try and swing some people over. Because, I would say that there's probably a portion of the population who is sitting on the sidelines. They know they don't like Trump, but they're not necessarily sure that they would vote for Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, I don't have much confidence in him, but it is possible that I think that Biden, if he tried, could play to the people sitting on the sidelines who know already that they don't like Trump, but give them a reason to like Joe Biden, give them a reason to get up off the couch. And similarly, I think Donald Trump should be focused on trying to get people up off the couch who are not necessarily super enthused to vote yet. Particularly people in these Rust Belt states who he was able to narrowly win over last time around. I think that a lot of those people rightly gave Donald Trump a chance in 2016 because he sounded different. And, after 4 years, from what I've seen, Trump doesn't seem to be all that different. I don't think we've had any radical shifts in things. I don't think that we've seen manufacturing suddenly move back to the Midwest. Nor do I think it would have been possible for Trump to, fulfill all of the promises he made. I don't think that he's going to untangle the trade relationship between the United States and communist China in 4 years. But nevertheless, people have have a lot more of a reason to be skeptical of Trump now because they've given him that first chance. And so Trump needs to make the pitch that he's done everything he can and that he's going to do more in the next 4 years to try and work towards the same goals that he outlined in 2016. And that really should be something that he's able to hit home. I think that Trump should focus on the issues that won him those states. Especially since, Joe Biden is making some of the same mistakes that Hillary Clinton made in 2016, and that he's not campaigning in those states because he's not campaigning anywhere. With all the virus stuff going on, Joe has been hiding in his basement. And so he's really doing the same thing that cost Hillary Clinton the last election, and that is not campaigning in Michigan and Wisconsin. Nevertheless, Joe Biden is a much less offensive candidate to these kinds of voters than Hillary Clinton was. Joe Biden has always fancied himself, middle-class Joe, even as absurd as that is. He's been an elected member of Congress since his mid-20s, and he got into the Senate at age like 29. He's pretty much the youngest guy ever to get into the Senate. But nevertheless, like with Trump, he has a certain demeanor that historically has appealed to the sort of rough around the edges, lunchbox type crowd. And I think that is doing a bit to help him win back, a lot of those union voters that Hillary lost. I wouldn't say that he's totally outflanking Trump, in this space, but he certainly seems to have to be much less vulnerable compared, with Hillary Clinton. Now, this whole discussion might seem counter to what I was just saying earlier about not trying to go after the undecideds. Isn't that exactly what I'm saying Trump should do here with the Midwest, is go after these undecided voters? And the answer is no. I don't think that you're going to convince someone who was planning to vote for Joe Biden that they ought to vote for Trump instead, even if they were a Trump voter last time. I think that people have made up their minds about Donald Trump by now. But what you should do is take someone try and energize someone who is open to Trump but is not necessarily enthusiastic enough to go out and vote in his favor, but is more open to him than Joe Biden, and give that person a reason to go out and vote. So you want to try and boost turnout amongst the your pre-existing base. You want to shore up your base. I don't think at this point that Donald Trump is going to be winning over the suburban college-educated white women, because all of us know women like that, and we know why they don't like Donald Trump. Donald Trump would be wasting his time trying to convince them. Just like, a lot of leftists are saying Joe Biden is wasting his time trying to convert the more haughty type of Republicans who don't want to vote for, who might not necessarily want to vote for Trump, but are anyway, trying to appeal to their better nature and say, oh, Trump, isn't he a bad person? Don't you want to vote for a good person like Joe Biden? And while I'm not necessarily sure that, Joe Biden is wasting his time doing that, since he is seemingly flipping a lot of these suburban districts in his favor, I do think that it would definitely be a waste of time for Trump to try and win these people back. You're not going to, convince someone who is voting based off of your personality that you're a nice guy. If people are voting for, either Trump or Biden based on personality, then they're probably not going to go, if they're a woman, go with the guy who said that he, grabs women by their genitals because they let you do it. This would seem to be what all the polling is dictating. And of course, who are the people who are sort of privileged enough to worry about the personality of their president and not really care about real issues? Not care about kitchen table issues? Well, of course, it's suburban housewives who, are college educated and are either stay-at-home moms or, professionals who are financially well off, who are comfortable in their lifestyle and aren't really worried about, how their lives will change, depending on who wins, but rather they're more concerned with, when they turn on the TV, does their child have a good role model on TV? Is the president someone they can hold up? Because these are people who believe, in the cult of the American presidency. These are people, again, who went to college. These are people who have been heavily schooled, and they believe that the president is our leader. He's our great leader, and we should all follow him, and he's like our pope. And so they want to elect a pious and holy man. Trump certainly is anything but pious and holy. So he needs to write these women off and go for the more rough and tumble people, to make sure that they go out and vote, to make sure, to try and energize people who are already pretty open to his message. You're not going to be changing any minds for the most part tonight or in any of these debates. Very little has actually moved the polls this year. It was funny. There was I saw a New York Times Siena National Popular Poll, which again these are polling the popular vote, not really a big deal, but they are an interesting barometer. And it was like 53 to 43 in favor of Biden, and then they showed the same poll July of 2019, and it was 53 to 43 Biden, meaning that in the last over a year, the poll hasn't moved at all. And we've seen that over the course of this year. All the riots did not really change the polls. The virus changed the polling amongst seniors. I've noticed that, but it didn't seem to do much else. The death of Ginsburg doesn't seem to have impacted the polls. It seems like people's minds are made up. So, if you are Donald Trump, you're not, there's nothing here that seems to be able to convince more people to get on your side. You would think maybe rioting in the streets would convince, these suburban white women that they have to vote for Trump, but, they look at Trump and they, just like Jeb Bush, they say Trump is the chaos candidate. So they blame him for the riots, I guess, or whatever. Their mind's already made up. They're going to rationalize things however they want. Issues are not going to change people's minds at this point. So that's about all I have to say about this upcoming debate. I will have, this is the pregame show. I will tomorrow do a postgame wrap-up on the big fight night of what is this, September the 29th. So I hope you folks will stay tuned for that, and please forgive me for indulging in a bit of American politics. I know it's a cheap and and not super intellectual thing to talk about, but again, I have to have fun from time to time. It's very rare that politics ever intrigues me. So with that said, if you get anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe because I do upload every day and I'd hate you haven't missed one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.